guys. We got to clear the pool room.
You're the bodyguard, aren't you?
A lot of bodyguards actually have come up and talked to me about it. You know, they felt like they were honored on some level. The job that they did was that they're not lackeys.
If they are truly bodyguards, then they're willing to sacrifice their life to save yours, which is a deep concept to me anyway, because I mean, I don't know if I could do it.
Trying to become a screenwriter for a long time, but with little success. I couldn't even get an agent. But when I wrote The Bodyguard, it was different, and I was able to get an agent. And with that, I moved out to Los Angeles. And the agent who took me on was also very optimistic about it and thought, you know, he was going to sell it right away, but he couldn't sell it, and he was tenacious, to his credit, about taking it around for 2 years, and it was rejected 67 times.
This was something that Larry Kasdan had written as a spec script when he was a copywriter in 1975 for Steve McQueen and Diana Ross, and it hadn't got made, and it went through, God knows how many is that, 11, 12 screenplays written and rewritten by Larry.
And during that time, my fortunes improved. I became a director. Kevin Costner, he had read The Bodyguard, and he said, I want to make this movie. Well, this was not a movie star who was saying this. This was just a young actor who I really liked. I said, well, you know, let's see what happens. And a couple years later, he was a huge star. And he never let go of the idea of making the script.
I thought Larry was such a great writer, I asked if I could read it. And I read it, and I so responded to him and his writing, and I just thought it was like weird that no one would have made it. It was just so really good.
The minute you read Bodyguard the first time, you understand why Kevin would like it. I mean, that character of Frank Farmer, from first act to the end, I felt like that made sense.
How many times have you seen that movie?
62 times.
62 times? Gosh.
I've seen it a lot.
The inspiration comes much from Kurosawa because of the spirit of a samurai, of a man who's not afraid of death. But the character and the way he would be an American bodyguard had a lot to do with what kind of person would take a salary and say that for this salary, which we've arrived at, I'm willing to die for you. And I wanted to write something like that. And it came pretty naturally to me to have it be a romance, too.
The whole IQ of the character is established through the great writing. You know, I could have ruined that part by trying to do something really interesting with it. You know what I mean? That would have ruined Frank by giving him a limp or a lisp or a thing, a tick.
Will you grab that jacket for me, the red one, please?
I'm here to keep you alive, not help you shop.
Larry gave me great lines. I had funny lines, even being very controlled. I played every guy in the world at that moment who was at least had his wits about him and his resourcefulness, but he wasn't going to let a woman walk over him, and yet he still had this huge problem of protecting this chick that was being an absolute bitch to him.
I've been watching you all night from across the room.
But he could see through her, so Larry wrote all those things.
Why don't you go back there and keep watching?
Kevin's attitude was there was nothing wrong with the story and that we should just make the movie. And we talked a lot about revisions, which I was ready to do, but Kevin was very committed to the original script.
It went through a lot of incarnations. You know, the script got darker, it got more and more violent. The Kennedy assassination, which is in Frank's backstory, went to, became the Reagan assassination attempt, but it lacked the sweetness. So I said, you know, why don't you go back and essentially just do a few tweaks to this, but make this first thing, it has the kind of conviction of somebody writing a script that they believe in. And that's essentially the movie we made.
Well, in hindsight, I think Kevin's clout to push some of these things was very important because it's never easy to piece films together. And The Bodyguard had been around a long, long time. And a lot of times when these things, you try to dust them off, it takes a while to get them going. It's harder than a fresh picture that's come in. This is sat in the vaults, and to move it along quickly, Kevin, with the clout he had, it gets everybody moving.
You know, I wanted Larry to direct it because Larry had written it, you know, but I think Larry and his mind had moved somewhere else, and Mick Jackson came in and did a really nice job.
And he'd come to the United States and made L.A. Story with Steve Martin, who I knew. And I thought that was a very entertaining movie and had a nice feel for the city.
I got a call from Kevin Costner. Picked up the phone, it was Kevin Costner. Saying, do you want to direct this large movie? And I said, gulp, yes, please.
Oh. All right, I'm up.
Frank Farmer, Rachel Mara.
When I had written The Bodyguard 15 years earlier, I had made the character enormously talented, gifted, charismatic, and also a reputation for being difficult, for being temperamental, for being a perfectionist. And the original character is written that way.
It's written for a diva, and there weren't many around that we really felt could, you know, play this part. And so Kevin said, I really love the idea of Whitney, and that was that.
I got word that he wanted me to do this film and that he didn't want anybody else to do it beside me. That intrigued me. Why can't anybody else do this film?
Well, we postponed the movie for a year because to wait for Whitney. There was an exotic quality to Whitney, you know. There was this thing about her, and you know, guys are in love with her.
Did you like that?
Hi, Rachel. Hi, Rachel. You look beautiful.
We were obligated to screen test her. I didn't feel like we needed to, but you know, giving her this role in this movie, I felt that she could. You know, there's not very many Whitneys come along.
All of us were a little nervous because Whitney could come and fall on her face, and in the studio, there it is on film. They can see it doesn't work.
These are your lines?
My main concern is, you know, I want to be believable. I want to be able to sink my teeth into this role and for people to say, oh, I believed her. She made me feel, you know, what she was feeling, or I could identify with that, you know.
Kevin was the one who was going to have to play all the scenes with her, and he felt very strongly that he could do it. And the whole thing was sort of gathered together to make it happen.
A couple of weeks before we started shooting, she said, should I have acting lessons? And I said, no, that's the last thing you should do. That's 2 weeks of stuff you're going to have to unlearn before you go in front of the cameras. What you do have to do is remember that you're a singer, and think of every scene that we're doing as being like a song. If there's an overriding emotion or something that the song is about, there's something that the scene is about, and there's a lot of subtextual beats.
So have you ever liked anybody?
What do you mean?
Like me, a girl.
And there was the notion that if she was going to be in it, can we have the scene that explains the black and white thing? And I thought, absolutely not.
It didn't really specify what her race was. She was just a big star. Her race was star, you know. It is not mentioned in the script that way, and that was not the plan. It was just a star and a bodyguard.
Black act, white, black, you know, I don't think of it like that. I just think of it two people who have relationship, you know, and that's life.
Race is not brought up as it shouldn't be. It was just these are these two humans and going through their lives and finding each other, and that worked beautifully for us.
The chemistry helped us just blow right by that issue, and I think to try to isolate it with a scene that would help explain it would have been a real mistake, and so I didn't even want to risk creating a scene like that.
A good example of a certain kind of thing that we do in American movies where you know who the hero is, you know what kind of guy he is, and you're not surprised when the woman is attracted to him. And in this case, when I had written it, the idea was that the woman character would be just as strong as this quiet bodyguard who was protecting her, so that when they had their disagreements and then they're coming together, it meant something because they were both very formidable, you know, and we were able to pull that off.
That's who Frank was, and to try to make him more would have been a mistake, and Larry's writing made him incredibly interesting to watch, and also, in a sense, made you if you're a woman, trust this man, and if you're a guy, wish that you would say things in the heat of battle the way Frank would say things.
Kevin's character, Frank Farmer, is trying to do what he's doing in the face of almost insuperable odds. He's trying to protect someone who knows no restraints in her personal behavior, who is out there. And so I tried to make the scenes where he's supposed to be guarding her in a public place very crowded and chaotic.
Mostly, I think, for me, was seeing Kevin as Frank Farmer. When I saw his haircut and I saw his suit, I thought, Kevin has understood this thing perfectly now, you know, for 12 or 15 years, you know, and he's going to do great with this. And that was, to me, the most satisfying part of the whole movie.
So Kevin walks in the door, and he was white walls and had really trimmed it all off. But he walked in, and I'm like, what have you done?
I cut it short on purpose for the way I wanted it to be, and I liked it for the part. I really liked it. Yeah, I got a lot of grief over Bodyguard for my haircut, and then for the last 15 years, everybody's worn their hair that way.
Kevin is very generous in the movie. He gives Whitney every scene he can. He's never competing with her for the attention scene. He is Frank Farmer fully in that he wants to disappear.
I've had that kind of protection around me, so I know what that's all about. And it's weird, and Rachel thinks it's weird, you know. Whitney thinks it's weird.
Kevin pushed very hard on some scenes to say, I need to get more out of you, Whitney. And she would say, I'm there for you. So I think the two of them, they got along famously. I mean, they really did. It is one of those nice stories.